Welcome back to the As Told by You podcast. We are very excited to welcome the owner of EQ Fitness, Wesley Newsom. Thanks for coming in and joining us.
Yeah,
We're
really
excited to hear about your story.
Oh, yeah. Where do we start?
We start with who you are, what you do, how you got to where you're at right now.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm from Sumter, South Carolina. I guess right now I'm a husband and father first, but a local business owner. Have lived in Columbia for, 2011. What's the math on that? 14 years now, which is kind of hard to believe. Got into fitness at an early age, very small, a lot of people get into fitness through sports and things like that. That's probably how I got into it. I played a collision sport where it's important to be much bigger, Football was pretty important that you move bodies and that you're not as able to be moved as easily. So being 120 pounds was not ideal, right?
Yeah.
And so getting in the weight room early, finding a love for exercise and fitness and, working hard in that sense probably is how I got into it. But as far as who I fell in love with training was actually adults that had either fallen out of love of fitness or never been into fitness at all,
So what was you were at Burn Boot Camp?
I was,
for a long time, I know. And that's where we first met.
That's right. Yep.
Did you do anything before that, or what was that kind of personal training journey?
Yeah, that's a fun story to tell. So I was actually thinking that I was going to be going into physical therapy at the time, right? So I probably graduated. Well, I did graduate 2015, but I still was kind of up in the air if I wanted to do physical therapy or not. So I stuck around my internship. My senior year was at AC Flora. And kind of going in circles here, but they were strength coaching, and that's kind of what the internship was, right? And so that really scrambled my brains because I loved it so much. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, So here I am thinking I'm going to be a physical therapist, but I fall in love with strength coaching. So I take a year off, and I get a call. Actually, the guy that I was interning with got the call to interview for Burn Boot Camp. Well, he wasn't interested, so he passed it off to me. Interview went great, and then the rest is history from there.
What did you like about that sort of training that
because I
fell in love with it?
Yeah, I wasn't really, honestly, I was kind of skeptical going in, but let me think. I mean, it was really cool to see people that didn't have confidence in their abilities, right? Build confidence in their abilities. It was really cool to see people thinking that, hey, I can't, it's not possible for me to set goals like losing 10, 20, 30 pounds, but to see them finally start to believe themselves, that was probably a cool aspect. But just as equally, training people that, were still athletic, like didn't consider themselves an athlete, but I reassured them hey, what you're doing right now is really athletic, that was cool. I don't know, I guess just the diversity that you see in a day probably was something that I really enjoyed. Not that the high school, strength coaching didn't have its diversity too, but for adults, it was really cool. The difference in an 18-year-old and a 28-year-old, we know. I mean, that's great. And then even there going to the 38-year-old that has 3 kids,
But the style of a Burn Boot Camp is very high energy.
It is. Yeah.
And when you left Burn, you opened up EQ and bring that same kind of style to it.
Yeah.
Which I would think is got to be a personality trait almost. Because
for sure,
it's not everyone loves to get on the mic and really amp everybody up. And you seem to do a great job with that.
I'm not sure what the style of Burn Boot Camp is. So I've never been there. So can you elaborate on what that means?
Well, maybe Wes should.
What is the style of Burn Boot Camp?
It's a high intensity interval training gym. I think it came around in 2012. It's still around. It's still got a lot of different locations, and it doesn't have a ton of equipment. But one of their slogans is, I don't use machines, I am a machine, or something like that. But yeah, mainly it's like high intensity interval training, and it's like explosive movements and go, you
Gotcha.
know, quick
Is
elevator spiel.
EQ style similar, or have you developed your own style once you ventured off into
One of the
your own thing?
reasons I opened up or, had the conversations with my sister to open up our own thing was we thought that we could do things differently in a good way, right? Not to say that one is better than the other, but, one thing that I noticed was we ran into injury a lot, right? And there was just, it was something that Kate and I both talked about and said, hey, could we approach fitness in a way where we could be physically fit, but also injury free, right? Enjoy the fruits of our labor type deal.
Yeah.
And so we did bring a lot of the high intensity interval training for sure. But solidifying movement patterns, lifting heavily, safely, encouraging
Kind of
people.
like CrossFit light.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, we do. On the West Coast right now, it's getting labeled as functional bodybuilding.
Okay.
Right. So you still approach, 3 to 5 sets, and you can do 8 to 12 reps and focus on hypertrophy, but with also big body movements, like multi-joint movements, right? So not just going to a preacher curl machine at at a box gym and just doing, preacher curls. Like we also do, RDLs, deadlifts, squats, things like that, where we do invite multi-joints in, pull-ups, et cetera.
Yeah.
Functional movement patterns.
Which I can't do.
A lot of people
Which I
can't.
did not realize
A lot
I
of people
couldn't
can.
do pull-ups. I started doing push-ups at the first of the year, and I talked to one of my friends who's a fitness coach, and he said, on the days that you're sore from push-ups, do pull-ups. I was like, oh, okay. So I went out to the park, for a walk, and I was like, oh, there's a pull-up bar, and I can't do one.
Just imagine you going like this. You see your
I'm
legs
just
kicking.
no, I don't even do that. I just go, nope, can't do it.
just hung there.
It's like I just go, I got up there and I'm going,
Yep.
nope, it's not happening.
Yeah.
And
Progressive overload, right?
My
so starting
goodness.
with bands or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't. I was like, like I wouldn't pass middle school at this point. If I can't do one pull up.
But see that part though, like training adults, it's fun to see that reaction. Sometimes it's not fun because sometimes it does, like people are like broken mentally. But if you add a band or you add something that like allows them to do it, and they see that, hey, I'm really not as far away as I think.
Yeah. I
And
get
then if
that
they
thick
stick
band,
to,
and then I get the thin band.
bingo, yeah.
Now
There's
I can do
levels to
without
the
it.
bands.
That's
yeah.
right.
Look, I can do 30 push-ups. I just can't do any pull-ups. I don't have any idea why. And but it's, so the same guy, I guess I've asked this one guy, Chris Pirelli. What's up, Chris? I've asked him about fitness and nutrition for years because that's what he does. And he said, once I got over 40, he's like, okay, you should be working your muscles in systems and not isolating. So like isolating is one thing, but like at your age, you're going to be better off doing systems. And so push-ups and deadlifts is what he told me. Like just focus on doing push-ups and deadlifts and don't worry about, anything else.
The 4-hour body. He does kettlebell swings, and that's it.
Right.
Like 75 kettlebell swings every day.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that's your
That
job,
gets
right?
boring as all.
Like when you're Tim Ferriss, you're like, this is my job for the next year. I'm going to figure out how to do this, and so, and that was his thing. I think with the 4-hour body is he eliminated everything down to like, what's the one thing I can do. Right. So what kind of advice do you have? I mean, not that I'm selfishly asking the question, but
This is why we bring in the guests.
for a guy who's 51 and is relatively in good shape, like what would you
bike a
suggest
lot.
to do? I bike a lot, but I don't do any muscle training.
I guess we start with what the goal is,
Right.
And then from there, what the freedom is or what your, moving things around when it comes to fitness. It's a respectful neglect of other things, right? I mean, this is true for everything.
Right.
I move things around to make a lunch plan or whatever. So starting with the goal, then what is actually doable for you weekly, right? And then moving from there,
I imagine a lot of it's diet too.
a lot of it's diet. Yeah, a lot of it's diet. But attacking too much at once can be like overwhelming for people. So truly just getting people in the door the first time and then moving from there is what we start with. But yeah, I'd say, do you have a clear defined goal? And then from there, what is your availability each week to attack that goal?
Yeah. And I'd say ultimately it's, longevity.
Yeah.
Just being ambulatory as long as I can possibly be. Right.
I hear more and more people say just aging well is my goal.
Yeah.
That's what I hear people say.
That's like a long-term goal is to age well.
mobility too.
Yeah.
I mean, in order to
Yeah.
age well, you have to be mobile and
protect my joints to the point that I have to, and all that stuff.
I see that a lot. Like you said, I have people that say, I want to age well. Great. Well, we need to do push-ups and do squats and get multi-joint movements, functional movement patterns that you're going to be doing the rest of your life anyway. So might as well learn how to do them well now.
But that seems like a goal of like getting wealthy, right? I just want to
Yeah.
be wealthy, right?
Yeah.
But that's not helpful because you don't have
Yeah.
a pathway to get wealthy if that's the only goal, right? And I
Bingo.
feel like longevity is not enough, right? I have to, figure
well,
out
that's what's that book called? It's like Aging in Reverse or something like that.
Yeah.
And they talked about setting pillar events. So the guy in the book, he was talking about skiing. He loves skiing. So what he would do is say, I'm going to ski in this downhill skiing tournament, or I'm going to go to the Swiss Alps and ski in the Swiss
Yeah.
Alps. So he knew he has to train.
Yeah.
So creating anchor events to force you to train
Right.
gives you that motivation.
And it's not you're doing it for some esoteric goal that you might not actually be there. You're doing it for a specific thing. I'm training for this half marathon, or I'm training for this century on a bike, or whatever it
but
happens
with
to
the
be.
ultimate goal of, hey, I want to make sure that my body is as
ready
fit
for
as
it.
possible for as long as possible, because we know that sediment then leads to bad
I guess
stuff.
finding out how fit the body is right now is a good starting point too. I have I have a client that, gosh, he was born in 49. So the math on that's 76. Is that right? And he was one of the ones that said, I just want to age well. And I see him 2 times a week. And, one of the things that was so important was to find out, how is he right now? How does he move right now?
Yeah.
And, in his case, he had a leg up on a lot of people because he moves really well, So what we've been able to accomplish in the maybe 8 months that I've worked with him may not be as much as what I would have if he didn't move well. Because then we've got to work on mobility.
Right.
But that would have to be a major part of what our sessions would look like, which is fine. That's good. Do that so that then you have a foundation to build on. So he can squat free weights. He can squat 35, a pair of 40s, 70, 80 pounds net. And for free weights, that's really hard to do because you have to top load that or find a way to comfortably bottom load that. And he does it with really good form. Now that's the key,
Yeah.
So
And imagine as you get older, the form is much more important. Right?
he's for sure. Well, for anybody, but definitely. But he's staving off, muscle atrophy. I say staving off because it will happen. I mean, all of us will waste away at some point. Not to go really dark on the podcast.
Sure.
But,
Yeah. No, that's cool.
So
let's go there.
Right.
That's
So
fine.
he's staving off muscle atrophy, right? And then he's also helping with his bone density as he ages. Not to mention how well he moves. So if life throws a curveball his way and he has to dodge something or he falls into a lunge, he has a better muscle memory of how to fall into a lunge.
Right. Because of repetition of doing the
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. Well, and you talked about doing it without injury. I think this is really interesting because as I'm getting into my 50s, so I was the 120-pound high schooler who didn't play football because I was 120
Yeah,
pounds.
exactly. Yeah.
Made no sense.
It's a
to
glutton
me.
for punishment.
I'm not
to do
even
that.
sure how you do that. Right?
Yeah.
I guess you're fast.
Fall down a lot. No,
I guess
not
you
even.
just avoid people.
Not even.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you could get the ball and just avoid people the whole time, you don't get hit.
Yeah,
then
if,
good.
you're small and slow,
Then
you
it's,
just don't.
It's
play.
a recipe for disaster. Yeah.
If
That
you're
was my
small
thing.
and fast, you got a chance.
You got to change.
My thing was I was clumsy, right? So and
Add
so,
that into the mix and
yeah, it's not a good mix. But as I get into my 50s now, I wasn't extremely active in my teens and 20s, so I'm not suffering from athletic injuries, right? I didn't really do much, right, other than sit at computers and play music. And so, I am kind of injury free, as I don't have back problems, I don't have knee problems, no shoulder issues,
that's
whatever.
the good part. Yeah.
How do you approach that to avoid those things, as you go forward? What
Yeah.
is it to avoid that injury?
Definitely movement analysis, right? Like seeing how you move, seeing where your weaknesses are. Just today alone, I had somebody brand new, never trained before in my life, and they sat down for a box squat, which is a good starting point. I mean, that was their first set, and their knees fell in as they did their squat, which, she wasn't thinking about that. And so I just told her, drive the knees out and make sure that they don't cave in on you as you squat, which is probably a sign of some muscular weakness that we would determine later. Probably weak glute med, something like that. But just knowing those things and having that knowledge to help somebody attack, okay, what's the next step is important. But I don't expect somebody to learn all that. Like, you don't have enough time in the day to know as much as you know here and also know that. Right. So that's where it comes in, where it's important to look at hiring a personal trainer, you know?
Do you have a program or a checklist or some sort of system that allows you to evaluate someone's body structure?
You know, I probably should, so that I could scale and replicate what I do well. But no, not really. Okay. I just, you know, I try to keep it as, I don't know. One of the things that, like, we get a compliment all the time is that it was like, it felt, you know, I had my guard up and I was nervous, but it felt so natural. You know, that's one of the compliments we get. Maybe that is due to us not having like this strict procedural thing that we go through. Like, hey, when you come in, you have to do, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but I was just curious. Maybe it could be
checklist.
It could be like, okay, I'm going to do these 4 exercises and I can tell this specific thing from these 4 exercises.
Pretty much, yeah.
And these 4 exercises are exercises that everyone should be able to do functionally.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of go off of what their goals are, but yeah, they're definitely, you know, 2 or 3 exercises. I want to see how they can press and I want to see how they can squat. Depending on what their goals are, I'd like to see how they can lunge, you know? But yeah, that's a good question. And yes, I do go through that. Sometimes I don't even realize I do that, but you know, at the stage that I am, having done it for so long. But yeah, we naturally start to see if people can press well, squat well. In the case of the client that I was telling you about, there was pretty much everything he did well. Chest press, there were some little things that he had developed over the years that weren't ideal, you know, just stacking the joints in different ways. He kind of kept his dumbbells more in as he dropped down, which he wouldn't want to stack it over the elbow, but it's hard on the chest. So I understand the tendency to want to keep it closer, but just correcting those movement patterns that he had over the years was easier, honestly, than I thought it would be. But that's just one client.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say, yeah, there's probably 3 or 4 exercises that I like to see if people can do well. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk about a little bit of because just catching me up, I guess, the business structure of EQ. So you do this as personal training, no classes or anything like that. Talk about how you run EQ.
Yeah. So we have,
can we,
go ahead.
I'd like you to lead into that with your journey and your decision to make that leap from a trainer at someone else's gym to starting your own thing, developing it from ground up, from scratch. And then what did you create?
Yeah. So, you know, again, one of the things that I noticed, it felt like it was all go, go, go. And it just led to a lot of injury. So we try to, EQ stands for equilibrium, right? So a balance of exercise and recovery. So that's kind of the base layer, wanting people to, yes, accomplish goals that they have, but also stay injury free. You know, the classic example is couch to 5K, right? Which is a really good model of getting people from inactivity to activity. So including Kate as the physical therapist, knowing that I wanted to include a yoga instructor, at some point knowing that I wanted to include, you know, possibly Pilates and things like that, bar, just again to move in different ways and encourage good functional movement patterns, but also have a professional ready to go if there was any injury that happened, right? Like, you know, say Elaine's doing an RDL and somebody else is next to her and pushing herself really hard and she pushes herself. That alone in itself is great. But what if she went outside of what she was able to do and she hurt her back? Well, it's nice that we have a physical therapist right there on site to coach her along the route of getting back well sooner and more efficiently. So I guess I just knew that over the 5-6 years of training in that setting that we had a good opportunity to do it again, not better, but differently, so that there was a component of longevity and then again, staying uninjured, and, or if you get injured, keeping it convenient enough to spring back into it, you know?
Well, what was that moment that you said, okay, it's time for me to go out on my own?
Probably around the COVID time. Yeah, I'd say probably around there. Just it gave me a lot more time to think. I had a lot more time to explore, my own thoughts, get them down on paper. I probably did, I don't even know, over 100 hours of like business planning, like listening to podcasts, reading books, deciding if it was even a good option, because always the option is too to just switch gyms. You know, just go and see if you can't find that model. Maybe uprooting and moving. But I really wanted to stay in Columbia. I really, you know, loved the community that I had. So I knew that part was out. But I don't know if there was any like boom light bulb moment. It's probably just talking to my wife about it and saying like, hey, do you think we could swing this? Talking to my sister about it. My sister was really the hardest sell. Really? She's a successful physical therapist, traveling around, you know, doing travel PT. And she had done a contract in Colorado and Arizona and on the coast. So it was a lot of talking about it that way. And enough people said, yeah, this sounds like a great idea, that I was like, all right, let's do it.
And how did that go? What was the journey through?
That part's tough. Cause you know, okay, how do I collect 6 figures to open a place like this, you know? So that was its own process of just searching crowdsourcing, right? I forget what the terminology is. You know, I was an exercise science major, and so was my sister. So to do the business part of it and to crash course and learn on the fly was not easy. But, you know, you talk to somebody and they're like, I don't know, but I know this person, you know. You just get connected enough that a lot of people helped along the way. And we found an investment team that believed in the idea, and you know, they gave us the funds to get started. And I mean, it really did just blink, you miss it. And in the span of probably 4 months, going through 3, 4, maybe even a full month of no's, I finally got that yes. And as soon as I got that yes, we just got the ball rolling. What's next?
That's awesome.
And then they opened their first location.
Yes.
And how long were you there before you...
We were on Divine Street from the last week of August of 2021 all the way to around a similar date in 2024. So we have been on Gervais Street for not at a full year yet. And, you know, most people say, oh, well, why'd you move? We just ran out of space.
Yeah. That's a good problem to
It's
have.
a good problem to have. It's still a problem. It's still scary, right?
I know
so
that
many tiny
building was a
logistical
beast
things.
for you.
Oh my gosh. You know, like you move a cable tower from point A to point B. Well, we're not going to touch that. You know, and you call another moving company. We're not going to touch that. You call 6 moving companies to find out nobody will touch a cable tower. So then you have to find somebody in Charlotte or Atlanta to come and do it for, you name the price, since they're the only people that do it, right? And then you get it over to the new location just to find out that it's too tall for the ceilings that you have. So there's just so many logistical, and that's just a drop in the bucket, you know?
Listen, I'm sure there are business people that get into business because of the business. I'm sure that happens. I don't know many of those people. Almost everybody I know started the business because they love doing the thing, whatever it is that they're doing. And then the business part just kind of follows along with that. And so it's always a struggle for, I mean, I did the same thing with video making, right?
Yeah.
I just love video making and said, well, I'm just going to do a business, right? And I had no idea what I was doing. Still at times don't, you know.
Exactly.
That's why I have business people
That's right.
in my corner. But like, you know, I think that's a very common story is that I just love doing the thing and I really want to do it this way and I'll just figure the business stuff out later.
There's a lot of people to help me do the thing. I mean, that's a really good way of putting it. Like I liked doing the thing and I still love doing the thing today, training classes as soon as we say, you know, all right, it's that time, let's start. Like I just go, it's fun. Flies by.
Yeah.
The business stuff's not always the most fun, but like you said, it keeps you doing the thing. So it's like, you know.
That's right. It's a means to an end, right?
Yeah.
So describe what you offer at EQ.
Yes. So we do 7 group training classes a day. Asterisks on Friday. We still do 7, but it just looks differently. You know, looks different on today, for instance. We'll have 3 classes in the morning. 4. Gosh, I almost forgot my 6:30 class. Sorry, y'all. 6:30 listening. And then we have 3 in the afternoon, right? Well, on Friday, we don't do the 3 in the afternoon just because it falls off a little bit. But not to bore you on the nitty gritty stuff, we do group training. That's probably I would say our most popular thing. Obviously, we offer physical therapy. That's very popular with both clients and non-clients.
Is that like something you got to do through insurance or?
We don't do insurance. We haven't gotten into that yet. Not to say that we rule that out forever, but it is cash-based PT. But it's very comparable to a copay. So, and that is the extent of the knowledge that I have on that. So you're gonna have to get my sister in here on the couch
It's a
to get
disclaimer.
that.
That's right.
Look, stay in my lane.
The views of Wes do not reflect the views of EQ Fitness. So PT being like, I have a knee injury that I need to, or I have back problems that I need to overcome. What does that look like?
All kinds of stuff. Kate gets people, she's had amputees, she's had high school sports injuries, she's had adults with injuries. I mean, it's no limit to the extent of things that she's seen, and sees on a daily basis.
Right.
And she's in the building now on Gervais Street. She's in the building next door to mine. So it's Blossom Shop and EQ Fitness. EQ Physical Therapy is in the little yellow building, right? I don't know if y'all been in the strip of, okay. Most people, for whatever reason, know where Smartphone Medic is, right there on the corner of Barnwell and Gervais Street. Everybody always head nods at Smartphone Medic.
Yeah.
Good for them. Everybody knows where they are.
It's weird. It's a landmark.
It is a landmark.
I don't know
Which,
exactly
shout to Demetri and Ronnie. They're great dudes.
Paper Source is over there, right?
Yes, if it's Paper's there.
Yeah, if it's
right?
Paper, right?
Yeah.
Under new management. Shout to Haley.
Right.
You're doing a good job. But
And
then
then
my
there's
wife,
I heard about this awesome hairdresser.
Oh, there's a hairdresser? I didn't know. My wife's hair salon is smack in the middle too.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
So wife's an entrepreneur as well, or she worked for somebody else?
no, that's her spot.
Man.
Yeah.
That's an interesting household.
Oh.
Two entrepreneurs.
Oh,
in the
she's going to be
household.
the one that carries us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have to retire early and manage hair salons because they're killing it over there. They do an amazing job.
I'm in the same boat. My wife runs a business too, and that's all. She's been a stay-at-home mom for the last 10 years. But right out of COVID, she started doing a business, and that's what we talk about all the time: is either my business or her business.
Yeah.
Like, what else would we talk about?
Honestly, yeah.
There's no politics, there's no sports, there's no movies or music. We talk about business, and that's pretty much it.
That's I relate to that
And
a
kids,
lot.
business and kids. That's the only two things.
That's about right. But the physical therapy, Kate sees everything. She sees everything, everybody. I'd say group training, physical therapy are mainstays, but we do offer personal training. That's popular. We've got myself, Susan and Ashton, all great personal trainers, if I do say so myself. And we do Pilates on Mondays and Fridays. Looking at expanding that. It's been pretty popular. And then we do yoga on Fridays and Sundays. Looking at expanding that. It's been pretty popular. And we do family classes once a month.
Nice.
So those are I mean,
That's awesome.
Oh, I should say this is a huge thing that I rely on it so much. I don't know why it wasn't one of the first things I say. We have included on-site child watch.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's huge.
Makes a big difference.
Makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
There's so many clients one-on-one that I wouldn't be able to see otherwise, and group training wise, So even today, my wife and I are going to go to the 4:30 class, and couldn't do it if we didn't have that
childcare.
You know?
Yeah. So what does the future of EQ look like for you? Where do we go from here?
Yeah. We've got definitely some goals as far as financials are concerned. We'd like to be loan free, debt free. From there, we do talk about the possibility of scaling, we get so many people that are like, open up a location here and open up a location here, which is great, and you're like, oh, that's such a great compliment. But it's like, do you have, 1 to 200 other people that agree with you? like we would need,
that's probably not your problem as much as being able to duplicate yourself.
That
right?
too.
How many of me can I find?
That's exactly right.
We all have the same philosophy. We all do it the same way. We all hold it the same number of standards. All that stuff.
And it's really hard. In all the years I've done this, I've had to hire and fire, unfortunately, trainers. And that is one of the hardest things, is finding an extension of yourself, which I've been lucky to do a number of times. It is doable as many times as you tell yourself it's not, when you're in the thick of the firing portion, right? You tell yourself it's just not possible. I'm going to have to work all the days of the week for the rest of my life.
And the hard part is letting someone else's style and standards and stuff be okay. Where it's not good.
Really? Do you have a problem?
I know. So, hey, listen, and I'm listening to you talk about this. I'm going, I know. But the hard part is once you take your hands off of it, as the person who does the stuff, as you take your hands off of it, you go, I want to look at every little thing that isn't exactly the way I would do it.
And I'm OCD too, which doesn't help.
Yeah.
And anxious individual, it's probably all the caffeine, let's be honest. But it's tough. But, you find, like, I guess I've made peace with it over the years that, like, just because it's not exactly my way, the person still can get value from it.
Oh, sure.
I've just seen that a lot. I don't know, just a little extra different flavor.
I think the outcomes are what matter, right?
For sure. Yeah. So exactly. If they come in, a certain way and they leave happier than when they came in, or better than when they came in, or one step closer to the goal than when they came in, you have to tip your hat to that and be happy with that. Yeah. But it is definitely tough.
Yeah.
To let go of control of that. And then, of course, back to scaling. Say we were to open a location in Greenville. Somebody said, bring EQ to Greenville. How do we find a physical therapist that we like as much as Kate, right?
Yeah.
Is Kate good with going back and forth to Greenville to get it started? Is my family ready for me to go back and forth to Greenville to get it started?
Is it financially worth it?
Is it financially worth it? Yeah. Do you have the demand?
Then it gets back to what's your definition of success?
Bingo.
Yeah. Right? So
bingo.
Can I truly make long-term effects on people and change people here locally?
Yeah.
And just make EQ the very best they could possibly be here locally, and have time for my kids. And you got 2 young boys that are doing all the sports now, and
and that's where we land more often than not. That we just want to perfect what we have here and just serve our people as best we can.
Because I think there's enough of a market in Columbia. We talk about this all the time, like whether we should go regional or national with stuff. And I just feel like there's such a market in Columbia that's not being served well, or not being served enough. Even in personal training or fitness, I mean, where there's a lot of
which
that.
seems to be a saturated, people say all the time, like,
it looks saturated, but everybody needs it.
Oh my gosh.
Everybody needs it. I mean, even if you think you don't need it, you definitely do. You're just ignoring it.
And you'll be that flavor for that one person that wouldn't otherwise, I don't know why I always see like the new touchscreen, like Coca-Cola machines, and you just see that and you're like, that is way too much. That's my reaction. I'm like, well, who needs all this?
I haven't drank soda in almost 10 years, but like when I was drinking soda, I think the Freestyle machine is an abomination.
It's unbelievable.
Absolutely.
Because nothing tastes good out of there.
That's right.
It's all the flavors, but it's none of the flavors because nothing tastes good.
I remember I don't want to name drop Moe's, but I feel like Moe's was one of the first ones. Maybe
Moe's
Firehouse.
First,
I know they both. A lot of people have them now. Zaxby's.
Yeah.
But I clicked Dr. Pepper. I had 10 more options.
Yeah.
Immediately, and I was like, "There's no way do we need this."
Yeah.
But to your point, like, obviously somebody likes that,
right?
Obviously somebody's clicking that vanilla Dr. Pepper button.
Do you know the story behind the Freestyle machine?
No. Oh no.
So the guy that invented the Segway, all right, he got rich by inventing a machine that filters water for in-home dialysis, so that you can do dialysis at your house. And he had a machine that filters tap water to make it medically pure. So after inventing that and making a bunch of money, inventing the Segway and making no money, he invented a thing that is solar powered that you can put into villages to filter water so that you can have clean water in these villages that don't have clean water.
No, that's cool.
So we had a hard time getting this thing distributed because it's very small for a water filtration system, but it is the size of a water heater, right? And so he made a deal with Coca-Cola that he would invent this machine that would do this Freestyle thing in order for Coca-Cola to distribute his water filtration machine.
That's crazy.
Because Coke had distribution in all of these African countries, all of these places where he wanted his water filtration system, and he traded the development of the Freestyle machine for Coke distributing his water filtration.
That's cool.
Isn't that wild?
No, it is. And they both benefited.
I hate that it doesn't work. I mean, I hate that it's a bad machine.
It works, but
it functions. But is
it as good as the normal?
Yeah.
Straight.
I'm not a huge soda drinker, so
yeah. And my daughter likes being able to get like strawberry Sprite or whatever, and that's fine. But it doesn't taste very good.
It's fun. I get it.
Yeah.
I was the kid at school that went down the line and pushed a couple of them.
Yeah.
Did y'all do that?
I did not.
No. Okay. I was the
But
psychopath
my
that did
kids
that.
like to do that.
Yeah,
And
the
I
little suicide.
encourage
It's
you-
them
probably
not
all the
to do
hits
that
I was
because-
taking
Now,
in football at
I'm gonna-
120.
Yeah, I was gonna say
It's
I was
slow.
doing this in the '80s, where I'm sure there was like all kinds of terrible stuff in that syrup. You know, like there was
Oh,
probably
gosh. Yeah.
twice as much syrup as soda. You know, and all that. But we would go down and it would be Mountain Dew and Dr Pepper and Coke and all of that mixed together.
We have talked about how McDonald's has,
The larger straws.
well, also the perfect mix for
yeah.
the fountain Coke.
My
Right.
wife agrees. She says Diet Coke at McDonald's is like,
well, it's
Yeah.
it's a legit thing. They've got
Okay.
like an agreement with McDonald's that
we get the.
Coke and McDonald's have this partnership.
about
where
that?
It's the best.
Which brings up a question about nutrition. So
Well,
let me ask
yeah,
you.
let's get back to where we. Yeah.
No, look, I love a tangent.
Yeah.
You know, Brian will tell you, I can't
Oh,
stay
yeah.
on topic no matter what. I'm curious about how much physical therapy or training is reliant on nutrition. And
Yeah.
if your nutrition is not right, you know, then very little of it is going to be affected. I always heard people say you can't out-exercise your diet.
For sure. Yeah.
Tell me about nutrition and how that plays a role in.
I would say
in
like an
what you do.
analogy of, you're headed across a football field, crawling, walking, or jogging or sprinting, right? Like with a well-aligned nutrition and good guidance for the individual, which we're finding out is can be more and more complicated, can be made more complicated, right? That's a whole nother area to go, but it can be the difference between those four different things,
Right.
If the individual, like you said, can't outrun a bad diet, if the individual does have no sense at all of a diet plan, maybe even is not eating one day and eating the next day. I mean, these are crazy things that I've heard,
Right.
where they're like, I only eat on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me,
I've heard now that nutrition is crazy. Nutrition is like religion, right? And
Oh,
so
and that's kind of where this person was. But
yeah, you go. I found this person I believe, right? And I believe in this
Oh,
person.
gosh, yeah.
And have you heard the Jordan Peterson diet where he only eats beef? That's all he eats is beef, beef and water. His entire diet is beef, breakfast, lunch.
I've heard
and
of the
dinner.
Liver King. I don't know if y'all have heard
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
Liver King guy.
He was a fraud though.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot. Of
And
them
Jordan
are.
Peterson
Yeah.
seems like a guy who would not do something crazy, right?
Yeah.
He seems
like
like
$10,000 on steroids a week is what I thought I heard reported of. Liver
Yeah.
King. Right,
That guy was just a fraud,
like a full fraud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. But I have heard people talk about almond milk is bad for you because of the way they process almonds. You should only drink cow's milk, and I go okay, and then. People say don't drink cow's milk because it's poison. You should only drink plant-based milks or what. Oat milk is the only thing that you can, and you can get into the weeds on those arguments. I think most people just need to cut out fast food and stop eating. Eating
people
junk,
do.
right?
That's where I kind of took a step back. Is people get so up in arms on who's right, but then they never even fully commit to the thing. Like
Right.
they get so focused and overcomplicating it,
Yeah.
where they haven't even done the simple steps.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, are you hydrated? Are you now? People really dove into that. You saw the the 10 a.m. keep going, and like they have it all the way down the jug.
Encouraging.
Oh my god.
Which kudos to whoever came up with that.
Gary
right? I mean,
Brecka and the hydrogen water. I'm ready to start that.
right?
Yeah.
But there's like so many different things to get lost in that, like, this is the right way, this is the right way, but like they haven't even done the basics. They have no idea.
I feel like when I was younger, even in my 20s, nobody just drank water. Like nobody walked around all day with a water jug. It just didn't happen. And I don't know why, like all of a sudden people can't survive without their water next to them. I know my neighbors, when they come over to our house, even though they'll come over to the house to ask a question or pick up mail or something, they've got their water jugs with them.
Yeah.
I'm like, y'all don't need to be hydrating right now. It's like you probably haven't done anything.
It is. It's funny you say that. It is habitual. Like I carry water around with me.
Yeah.
Pretty much all the time.
I feel like it's comforting. It's like
At this
just
point, it
makes you
is.
feel better.
At this point, it is.
But you're not really doing a lot for yourself, that when you're dehydrated, you get thirsty.
Yeah.
You
But
know?
the like.
So I feel like there is
As I drink water.
well, we're talking, cotton mouth. But what it dawned on me as a new parent
Right.
that from the time we are a baby,
Yeah.
when they're upset, our first instinct is to give them a bottle.
Right.
feed them.
Comfort.
Yeah.
Comfort.
Find some way.
Right.
Yeah.
So we ingrain ourselves into using food as a comfort mechanism.
Right.
For sure.
And, I think that is what ends up creating the bad habits, because we end up finding reasons and excuses to use whatever's around to eat to comfort us.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much that goes into it. Like, I find that very few of my clients, I can even ask, do you have any idea how many calories you have in a day?
Right.
Like just starting there. We're talking about the first day of my nutrition courses in college. They have no idea.
And you assume they underestimate probably, even if they tell you.
Oh man. But then also too, like, the definition of like crash dieting, like doing so small and then binging. Right. So oftentimes they could be fairly accurate if they do know the answer, but then they don't count for whatever reason Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which
Those are the cheat days.
right. But like three
Three out of
plus
seven.
4. Yeah.
3 out of 7
Hey,
cheat days is a lot of cheat
That's
days.
a
Yeah.
high percentage.
I've also looked at
Because Friday counts as a weekend day.
That's right.
Right.
Friday night,
yeah.
was
Friday
weekend.
night, and then that's a weekend. Yeah.
Look, and people get sensitive to it very quickly too. Like very quickly, people are up in arms. But immediately the defense goes up, and so that's where it's gotten one of my least favorite things to talk about, unless they approach me.
Right.
So you don't
So-
include a nutrition guidance with your
I don't
personal training?
say that. Like I don't tell people like we don't. I'm more than happy. Last week actually was the first time in a while that somebody asked me for nutrition advice. She was like, "Is that something you do?" And I was like, "Gladly." But I always want them to come to me. I hate to be the one pushing any agenda. I like to see where they are, what they're doing.
Yeah.
And this person was way ahead of the curve, but there was just small adjustments. She didn't know what a macronutrient was, so we just educated ourselves on that. Not saying that we needed to, but she was interested in it. So we did that. Timing of her meals was something that she was interested in. So I fielded that. But like, I don't have necessarily any set plan for individuals. I just go off of what I have seen works really, really well for people.
Well, and it's
long term.
It's so individual too, because like
Definitely can be.
I have figured out over the time that I can't eat bread on a regular basis because it messes with my system.
Yeah.
And I'm not gluten intolerant. I'm not celiac disease or anything like that. It just bread doesn't suit me well, but it is a comfort food. So when I'm stressed out, what makes me feel better is a cheeseburger.
There you go.
And I will just do that as to say, if it's one day a week, then that's okay, but it's so individual. My wife could eat no meat and be fine. She thrives on green vegetables and, other stuff. I can't go a meal without meat or else I'm starving. And so I think it's so hard to do a nutrition plan for people without it being
one set plan
completely
can't fit
customized,
everybody.
yeah.
No. You could say it. You could try to force it, but what's the success rate?
Don't
of
eat fried
anything
chicken
forced?
is a good universal.
Yeah.
That's a good universal tip.
Right.
Hey, here's a good universal health tip. Don't eat fried chicken.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think that varies much.
No. No.
I don't think there's anybody that can thrive on fried chicken.
Consistency's key though. So like, yeah, there's so many things that go into it. I was a certified nutrition coach at one point. I don't want to say I happily let that lapse, but like, it's just
It's hard.
It's not a part that I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Now, my advice to people that really want to deep dive, find a certified nutrition coach, find a dietitian, find one of those individuals and get plugged in. And I'd be happy to help anybody do that. In fact, one of my clients is a dietitian, and I asked for a whole list of dietitians for the people that really, really, really wanted to deep dive or wanted me to just tell them what to do.
Right.
That's out of my scope of practice. I can't tell you what to do. I don't have all the facts and I don't have all the knowledge.
Yeah.
So it's a lane that I have chosen not to go into selfishly because I do not enjoy it.
Right.
I don't find any joy in deep diving in nutrition.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things my friend Chris taught me 10 years ago that changed my life was the idea of the sugar creating insulin and insulin creating that sort of back thing. So that he said before noon, no sugar at all. because when you have sugar in the morning, cereal or muffins or pancakes or any of that stuff, it creates a spike in your sugar, which crashes, and then your insulin comes in, and that makes you ravenously hungry.
Yeah.
And then that puts you off cycle all day long. And so I started doing a protein powder in the morning that has no sugar in it, with nuts and spinach and stuff. And that has regulated my diet. Like, I don't get hungry anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I get hungry when it's time to eat or whatever it is, and I want to eat, but like, I don't get that cycle that I used to get.
Yeah, that was one of the coaching cues that I used to
life.
use pretty frequently, was starting with protein,
Yeah.
you know, and regulating hunger throughout the day. But that too can come back to the hydration, and that helped regulating your hunger as well, cravings. But yeah, those two coaching cues were things that I used to say a lot to people. This like I said, this meeting last week, we talked about that was one of the most lacking macronutrients that we could see pretty much off the bat. So we talked about kind of just a reshuffling. The first meal of the day didn't get quite as much attention as maybe we probably should have, as far as from a protein intake standpoint, and a satiation standpoint. But overall, she was really good as far as what she was doing. She was on the right track. It's just sticking with it and then cutting out the noise.
Right.
Because, you know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you can see like very, very little. 5, 6 weeks, you can start to see more. But there are going to be plateaus. And then so with those plateaus can often be doubts. And you're right there on the cusp of breaking through type deal. But you gave up on it.
And then it goes back to the goal too. Like, what am I trying to really accomplish?
Yeah.
Right.
Which can help with the visualization of like, hey, if I'm going to ski this, then these are the days. I just shared something today that was like, you know, steps towards your goal. What people think, you know, like every day you're 100% battery. It's like, no, some days there's 29%, some days there's whatever percent. But all of those days, even the 29% day, got you closer to where the ultimate goal is. So the psychology in fitness and nutrition is insane.
Yeah.
That's why, like, I was so frustrated. I was one credit away from saying I'm a minor in psychology. So I cannot say I'm a minor in psychology, but I was one course away. Shout to my advisor.
Yeah.
She was sweet, but
Well, the current environment,
could have used that.
you can learn anything, right?
Oh,
So,
yeah.
you know,
Oh,
it's,
yeah. I mean, yeah.
I've been studying neuroscience for the last year, you know, and how the chemicals affect your brain and like what part of your brain accomplishes what thing, and the battle between your prefrontal cortex and your limbic system. And
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't need a degree in it. I just love learning about it, you know. So,
I've been learning boxing for the last year. We're on
Really?
two totally different wavelengths,
Nice.
but I wouldn't coach anybody in boxing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I did a shot, second or third camera on a documentary at White Rock Boxing.
Okay.
Many years ago. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's out in Ballantyne area, in White Rock area. But it's this boxing gym that's in the back of a HVAC company or a roofing company. I think it's Stanek Roofing.
That tends to be where they are.
But they have trained the last, whenever I was out there 10 years ago or whatever, they had trained the last 5 Golden Glove winners
cool.
from this little shed in the back of this roofing company in White Rock. And it's like all of these world champions have trained there. And it's a big deal, but it's old. It's like a 1970s, early 80s styling. And you could tell that they haven't updated stuff in a long time. And
Very Rocky-esque.
yeah, very Rocky-esque. Lots of haze in the air for some reason.
Oh, always.
You know, you get the good old nachos,
The palpable,
as you're watching.
The palpable sweat.
Yeah.
But shout to Battle Boxing Gym. Elijah Caldwell, plug them.
Nice.
He's a freak. He's great at what he does. Good kid. And he's made it really fun for me.
That's
as
great.
As an old dude in that setting.
Yeah.
You know, 32 years old and in a boxing gym is,
As
as I have found out, it's quite old.
Yeah.
You raise the average age a bit.
That's right.
But no, it's been fun. You know, one of the things I did in COVID was learn how to. I took drum lessons. I don't know. Every year I've just kind of adopted doing something new and sucking at it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
I feel like it helps me understand where my clients are coming from when they get discouraged or whatever. So
Yeah. Back to the
it's been
4-hour
fun.
body. You know, that's kind of what Tim Ferriss does, right? Just learn stuff. Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of.
Do you have any good takeaways from one of Bill's favorites, Alex Hormozy? Are you
I was going to ask about Alex.
I
Hormozy.
read his book, one of his books. Golly, what was it called? It's actually on my to-do list to read again because it is a good for me, I enjoyed it. Man, Skinny Startup or something. No, that's not it.
Well,
It's
he's
lean,
got the
lean gym or something. It's something about starting a gym.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
the gym book. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't read that
Gym
one.
Gym launch secrets could be it.
Right. Okay.
I'm dropping
That makes
a
sense.
lot of different titles that
Yeah.
authors could get frustrated with. So that's not Hormozzi.
Well, if Alex
but
Hormozzi finds our podcast and gets frustrated with you, then I'll
Then we're
consider that a win.
doing something right. Yeah.
I will consider that a win.
Bad PR. Good PR type deal.
Love to see him do a short about our podcast and say,
You know,
this wasn't the right book
he
title.
was he was on my algorithm a lot.
Yeah.
You know, starting the gym, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
Since has fallen off. But yeah, I enjoy stuff. I feel like there's very little emotion that he reflects.
Oh, yeah.
Not to say that it's not there. I mean, obviously he's human, he feels emotion, but he's a
Matter of
machine.
fact.
I mean, he's very matter of fact, which I appreciate that too, you know? But yeah, since opening the gym, just fallen down my algorithm.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of things that I stole from him.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of things. You know, any really, really good trainer is just a culmination of stolen things.
Right.
That's it. Exercises, thoughts on exercises, way to approach, time and attention. Like they're, you know, all the time I'll say to a class, I'm trying to think of one this morning. You know, okay, we did a hamstring curl exercise today, which is this gets out of the functional into the bodybuilding. It's a single joint movement where you just use the hamstring as if it's a bicep to, rather than flex the elbow, flex the knee, right? And so I just tell people exactly that. Think of the hamstring right now as the bicep, just like the hamstring balls up, and that's a visual that you can see and feel and probably have since you were in grade school. Like, you know, look, daddy, look at mommy, you know, that you don't look at the hamstring and think it that way. You know, it's just normally a part of a means to an ends as far as getting from point A to point B. But helping, I find it helpful to think of it in that scenario, super specific scenario, as a bicep doing the hamstring curl. That's stolen.
It's on the back. So
It's on the
hard to
back.
see.
Posterior chain is
You're not looking at it the way you're
Truly-
looking at the bicep all the time.
truly. I think anterior chain and posterior chain is so much harder for people to work because you can't see it. There's no visual, right? Which can be misconstrued when people are staring at themselves in the mirror. Like that's super helpful. You know, yeah, it could be vain. You know, if Brian winks at himself, you know, or blows himself a kiss like that,
Yeah.
we might have
Well,
questions. But
We've talked.
You
got to
love yourself first.
We've talked
yeah,
about that.
yeah,
Brian.
yeah.
Let's not do that anymore.
But
yeah,
no, you know, but that came from somebody long ago.
right.
Just because I say it's my own, it's probably not. I probably stole that from somebody.
But it's the way you adapted into what
for
you're
sure.
doing. Yeah.
Knowing where my clients are and kind of what their end goals.
Yeah.
Sometimes I decide to keep it surface level based off of the cohort that I have, and other times I'll deep dive into the exercise science.
Yeah, that's cool.
But just knowing the personality of the class or individual, if it's
I'm
one-on-one.
still on Alex Hormozzi's algorithm. I get him all the time still.
Well,
And
you've
so-
moved on.
Well, you're
from the
you're saying his
gym
name a lot.
setup
Mine's going to be back too.
to business and sales. And
Yeah, and that's kind of where I get from him is a lot of that entrepreneur mindset
Oh,
stuff.
gosh.
And there was a super important one for us like a year ago that he did, which was comparing all of the media platforms and what you get out of each one, you know, and so like ranking them based on things like engagement and longevity of like how long are people watching videos on different platforms and stuff like that. And he dove in. I mean, it was probably a 45-minute video about that, and I was like, oh, this is the coolest thing.
Which is
Because
that's
he's very
crazy
matter of
because
fact
that's so-
about it. Because
yeah.
it's not his opinion,
Yeah.
right? You know,
Yeah.
he's just diving into it.
But that's so helpful too to help you with, like, for instance, I saw this was so crazy. I got by one of these on Instagram. It was like tap and hold the screen when the rabbit's sprinting through, right?
Okay.
And I was like, oh, damn it. You know, I was
Yep.
slightly off.
Can't get it, yeah.
Can't get it. And I finally got it. And underneath the rabbit was a little message to go to the caption. And then they got you to go to the caption too, because I was like, oh, that's cool. And I went to the caption. And it was something totally like, why is this on my algorithm? It was trying to sell me like something for my house that, you know,
Yep.
whatever. But what a genius idea, because I spent all that time on the video. So now it's going to populate
that's
on
right.
somebody else's Instagram. Then I clicked the caption, you know, so like all these different things. And guess who's probably one of the pioneers of informing people about that is probably Hormozzi, because
Yeah.
he's just,
Yeah.
he's
definitely.
always diving in. I don't know how he has
You just
enough time in the
gamified
day.
yourself too.
Oh yeah, exactly. You engaged a completely different psychology than, you know, anyway.
Well, so that begs the question: How do people find EQ? How are you getting the word out about
Oh man,
what you're doing?
I hope we're getting those trends, and we're right behind those trends, and that helps with people finding EQ. So if you see one of those posts and you do it and you realize, oh, son of a bitch, this is from EQ, you know?
Yeah.
But no, mainly word of mouth, mainly like, we have meetings every time, back to like trying to make our product the best. How can we serve our people the best, right? It really does come back to our people. So like, we do kind of hope that word of mouth, just based off of how well we serve them, is the main way, right? And then too, we found success with like, if somebody's genuinely happy and they bring in somebody that's like sees that they are genuinely happy, they're more likely to be a long-term client as well. So that's the main thing. Now, we also do Instagram. We do our Instagram posts where we do try to also add value.
Yeah.
More often than not, the best performing posts aren't one that adds value. So we have to kind of remind ourselves, like, it's tough because you pour a lot of time into something that adds value, but it gets 50 likes, but a trend that you did gets over, I think we had one recently, it was like over 6,500 likes, maybe more than that. And it's like, really? But at least it draws eyes. And but I would say Instagram, word of mouth. We do events. We just did the St. Patrick's Day parade, but very small grassroots things. Podcasts. We've done podcasts. Sure. We like to think that's a good way to do it. Yeah. Right? I think so.
Doing a podcast. Yeah.
We've never done like radio ads or anything like that. We've never done billboards, although I think it really would be cool to have a billboard. Call that what you want to call that, but I think that'd be so cool. Like drive by and like, look, kids, there we are.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't just be my face, that wouldn't be cool, but like our family, seeing how cool it is. Because I'm proud of what our family's done. Kate to be a part of, be the physical therapy, to me have the gym, and for Harley to have the hair salon. Mm-hmm. I think that's super cool.
That's amazing.
I'm proud of that. And so to have all of us, on a billboard, I'd be like, hey, that's pretty cool.
And that's why we do billboards, so we can see it and go, hey, cool.
Isn't that cool? Exactly, yeah.
It's not a marketing thing.
Right, it is. Look how cool that is.
I can go, whoa,
yeah.
Look here, kids. We're on a billboard.
Man. Feel for that split second that you made it. You're on a billboard.
There
when you realize, wait a second, I'm paying how much? And it's not really generating that many impressions.
Yeah, you could do a month, just to have it up there.
Just a trial. Yeah.
That's
I hope Lamar's not listening right now because they're really pissed off.
Right. They know.
They
know. It's not anything that we haven't talked about before.
That's right.
Well, I used to work with a group that did car ads and we did infomercials for them. So 28-minute car infomercials, which were just ridiculous. But one of the things he did was he went to the billboard company. This is in the Charlotte area. And he said, I want to buy up all of your unused billboards for 1 month. And so I'll take every unused billboard that you haven't sold.
I'm taking a deep breath because I'm thinking, like, how expensive is that?
But for 1 month.
Yeah.
So he did a 1 month thing. And of course, what happens is if they're unsold, until the next billboard gets put up there, his billboard stays up there.
Okay.
And so I don't know where he figured this out, but I think
because they're not going to hire anybody to go out there.
Figured that out.
Yeah, I think they changed the rules
now
right after
digital.
that.
It's all digital.
Now it's all digital now.
Yeah.
I got 6 seconds for you.
That's funny, but that's like what they say, because I've had those phone calls and they're like, this 6 seconds costs, and I'm like, well, how many 6 seconds are?
How many times are you doing this every day?
However frequent cycle am I the 55th 6 second period of time? Like,
yeah,
it's gotten complicated.
You're never going to hit it exactly right. You're never going to drive by it exactly when your face pops up on there. It's tough, but I think it's there's a clever way to do it. It's just most people don't do it cleverly.
That's right. Yeah.
Most people put too much on their billboard and they list out all of their offerings on there, and of course nobody's going to.
I've thought about the car wrap thing. Thought about that. You see that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's mainly for a tax deduction or what.
I don't know, man. We had the previous company I was at, we had a not a wrap, but like a little sign on the side of the car, and we got approached by the business licensing guy when we were at a location to see if we had our business license for that particular location.
Oh gosh!
And because we didn't,
so it caused more problems.
We got fined, and we got a bill from the business licensing. I think we were in Greer or something like that, and we didn't have a license to be working in Greer, so we got fined for it. So whatever.
That's nice.
You know,
Yeah.
business. That's the part of the business stuff. You go, wait
There's
a minute,
so-
I'm
there's
supposed to
not
have a business license in
There's
Greer?
not a playbook.
Yeah.
You know, there. I don't want to say any.
There should be.
I'm not going to drop any different
There
departments.
probably is somewhere.
But there.
Yeah.
Is there? I've like searched the. I feel
Can we hire somebody to do all this for us, right? You know?
But there was one where I got somebody came in from the department of something and something, and I'm like, who? Like I had no idea this was a thing.
Like we have to do that
And
now?
we had, no joke, we had like 8 steps that we had to go through, or, you know, there's always that or else. And you've got this time frame, and it's like, damn, how'd y'all even find us? And what, you know, but we want to be compliant. Obviously, we want to do things the right way. We're not trying to, you know,
Yeah, it's like
dodge.
they have a secret that they don't want to tell you. Like we know how to do this. We're just not going to tell you how to do it.
Thankfully, everybody that I worked with at that department was very nice. But golly, that was a stressful 3 or 4 months.
Part of the fun of it, I guess, is going, what is that? You know, we went to go convert our employees last year from hourly to salary, right? Which you would figure is well within our purview to do, right? We just decided they're going to be salary. So our HR company, we use Guru for our payroll, and they were like, wait a minute, can't just do that. I was like, okay, well, why can't we do that? And it's like, well, they have to be compliant for salary, and you can't just convert people from hourly to salary. It depends on the type of job they have and what they do
gracious.
and the resources that are provided for them, all this stuff.
Are they exempt, non-exempt?
Are they exempt or non-exempt?
See,
and all this
my
stuff?
knowledge, the extent of my knowledge would have been, okay, well, that's just a different taxing thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy, but
Right.
apparently not.
We just decided to do it, right? And we're going to do it next payroll. And they're like, no, we've got to go through and meticulously make sure that everybody is qualified to be able to be salary. And they were eventually, but like, you know, we had to send a list of them. And there's those things where like, okay, this is 2025 is 20 years I've been running a business, right?
Wow.
And I just have never done that. I've never
And that was the-
converted
yeah,
somebody
exactly.
from a W-2 hourly employee to a W-2 salary employee, and now I have to learn a new thing.
That's one thing too, that like we've been so lucky to have a great core circle of individuals at EQ that all have their own strengths and knowledges, right? You know, we have a social media person. We now have like a gym manager. You know, we now have really we have like 2 or 3 gym managers, let's be honest. But you know, we have an EQ kids. That's what we call our child watch. We have an EQ kids manager,
Right.
You know, just because we found out the hard way that like just pass that torch. Like if that's not something that if that's not your strongest suit, just pass it, and it'll pay for itself.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Which it has, thankfully, because it doesn't always pay for itself, and sometimes people pass that torch too soon.
Right.
You know, we didn't do that. We didn't shift that to another person until 3 years in.
Sure.
You know, initially you got to do all the paddling on the boat, but
Yeah.
thankfully we added some other sailors, and we're good to go.
Yeah.
We're good to go. Now we still have a lot of different goals, like we talked about, but like I would say the main one, coming back to it over and over, is just how can we serve our community the best? And every now and again it comes back, you know, it comes out like, would scaling be in our best interest? Could we serve another community? You know, do we love that community? Just candidly, do we love that community as much?
Yeah.
Because if it's not a labor of love, it is very hard to get one of these things going, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So to all those, like all the gyms that have multiple locations, like shout to them, because that's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough.
It's hard enough to run one location. Much less having a corral of them out there.
That's right.
Well, we've really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for this, man. Yeah, this
Your
was
insight and all the different tips and stuff. We end all of our podcasts with 5 questions. We call it the 5 favorites.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
All
rapid
right.
fire, no wrong answers.
Okay.
What is your favorite movie?
Ooh, man. Immediately Shawshank Redemption popped into mind.
that's
Just
a good
because
one.
we were talking about the other day. So I'm going to just go with that.
That's a good
Saving
answer.
Private Ryan just did pop in
Yeah.
after that. Those 2.
Saving Private Ryan. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Those are good.
Yeah.
My grandfather fought in World War II, so, you know, my parents are a little bit older. So World War II movies, but yeah, probably Shawshank.
Shawshank. Yeah.
Good.
That's a great one.
Yep.
Favorite book?
Oh man. Probably, that's tough. I would say, honestly, the one that I just read, Pursuit of Excellence, is really, really good. But that does tend to be my answer for favorite book. It's just whatever one I read
Which
most
one
recently.
you just finished? Yeah.
Yeah, that tends to be my answer. So that's not fair. I'm not a huge reader, but that one was actually really good because it was kind of a psychology approach to why do the best at what they do what they do, and how do they do it, and it's really cool. It's the one that came about when A.J. Brown was caught reading a book on the sideline.
Oh yeah.
Right, and I was like, let me buy that. See what, and I'm glad I did. It was good.
Nice. New question. That was good.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. You just calling an audible. That's nice.
Famous. No. Favorite dessert.
Key lime pie.
Key lime pie.
Yeah. That's a good answer.
All right.
Oh, that's tough. But I think
Favorite exercise to do.
pull ups. Sorry.
Well, whatever, man. I just can't do them.
I'm just bragging about
if
them.
I could do it, it would probably be my favorite.
Yeah,
right? I would go
I'd probably
watch
say
this,
pull-ups.
and I'll just do it all the time. I'd be pulling up on stuff all the time.
But the reason it's my favorite is because it is one that I did endure a time of sucking so bad at it, but now it's one of my strengths.
Right.
That's my reason. Dips, I was naturally the best at dips because I was so light.
Not a lot to lift.
Not a lot to lift. But for pull-ups, and you would think, oh, well, that's the same for pull-ups. Like, no, it's pretty muscle mass dependent.
Yeah.
So that was probably.
Wow, that's probably why I can do push-ups, because I don't have a lot to lift. Like, it's not, I don't have any particular muscle strength. I just don't have a lot to push up. That's
Because you're not having to push up your legs, just
right,
your upper body.
right, just upper body. I didn't even think about that. But I was always proud of the fact that I could do push-ups, but I don't think that it means anything, because I don't have a lot to lift.
Because you can get on the floor and then get yourself up.
That's all it is. It's a minimum requirement, really. It's just getting yourself off the floor. That's great.
All right, last question. What would be your final meal on death row?
Oh gosh, back to Shawshank. Let's see.
Right.
Oh, that's so tough because I like all foods. I'd probably say like steak and potatoes, like steak and French fries. I know that's so generic.
No, that's
Hey.
right. Whatever, man. You
It's your choice.
do your thing.
What are y'all's? I'm just curious.
Wow.
Varies. I mean, I like all foods, so like
Mine would be a gas station cheeseburger.
okay.
So my favorite thing is a cheeseburger made on a flat top grill, and
Okay.
usually those are at the back of a gas station.
And because it's death row, you don't have to deal with the
You're
repercussions.
not worried about a thing, you know.
Yeah. No Pepto, no
think,
issues there.
I think otherwise, like a brownie sundae, hot brownies with ice cream. That could be.
That would be
yeah, I
dessert
might change my
after.
answer.
Wait,
That'd be
it's
a
an
meal.
entire meal.
I think I changed.
A meal, to me, is appetizer,
I'll do that.
the full course, and then the dessert.
Aussie
That's
cheese
the meal.
fries.
we had
from,
somebody bring up
Outback. Those are great.
a tomahawk steak because it's so much that it would take you a long time to eat it.
And you buy yourself some time.
And I was like, all right. I mean, I kind of like that idea. I would never finish it. 40-ounce steak. There'd be no way to finish it.
Yeah.
So, well, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this, man.
Well, thank
it was
you.
great
I really
great to talk.
appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're welcome.